Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 live stream for the Valspar Championship. Going to get you guys ready for all of your betting exposure, both for Underdog and Prize Picks. Over there, any matchup and 3-ball bets that you guys want to look at. So hit me with any questions that you've got down there in the live chat. If you don't have any questions quite yet, feel free to go ahead and say hi as you file on in as well. So hopefully you're having a fantastic Friday and you're ready to talk some golf over here for the weekend. We've got Underdog and Prize Picks boards already posted. So unlike the round 2 stream, we are going to have that to go through, as well as the matchup boards, which we went through yesterday, which if you guys were able to go out there and tail that Victor Hovland 3-ball, ended up putting you into the profit if you ended up tailing those. Didn't cash out on the other side to make it a truly epic day, but still a solid day from the matchup perspective. Just wish it could have done a little bit better with our Prize Pick slip. So if you followed me over there on Twitter/X, I did post the slip over there, but hey, we're back for a little bit of vengeance and we'll try and get back into the positive there. But let's start it off, look at some of the averages out there from round number 2, which I think are going to get a little bit easier out there for round 3. So just like it got a little bit easier from round 1 to round 2 with the cut line rate, higher quality of player, I think you're going to see a little bit better scoring out there, along with the fact that the winds are going to be a little bit calmer too. So heading over to the forecast before we truly dive on in, you're going to see that the forecast for tomorrow looks relatively calm the entire day. You've got at most about 7-8 miles an hour of sustained winds. It does look a little gusty out there towards the end, but when you have just 9 to 11 mile an hour wind gusts, as opposed to the 20 to 25, 30 like we've had with the first few days, you can imagine that the scoring is going to improve. So rather than maybe a stroke over par scoring average, I think it's going to be closer to an even par scoring average. So your birdie average likely going up to at least 3+ per round, maybe even close to like 3.25 at the very top end of that spectrum. And then this bogey average, I think is going to drop to 3, maybe about 3.25 out there per round. So, pretty big differences out there in both of those categories. And I have gone through the pin locations already. These moving day pins are a pretty good mix of a few tricky holes, as well as some moving day pins on easier holes. So, for example, 8 is a par 3. It played 240 out there today. It looks like a tough pin location there in that, small front corner, but they're probably going to move that up to make it a little bit shorter. You have holes like 5 that are a lot more accessible. It's a par 5 and maybe going to be a little bit more gettable for these players. Hole 1's a par 5. That's pretty gettable out there for that sort of hole. You prefer actually the back hole locations out there to those reachable par 5s. 11 isn't all that difficult. You got holes like 17 that are probably going to get moved up as well in terms of that tee box. I don't think it's an easy setup when it comes to the moving day, but I also don't think it's a super brutal one either. So not really having a massive impact on how I'm taking apart these prop boards. More so just the field strength that I think is really going to cause that better scoring, as well as some of the better actual conditions that these players are going to be going against. So taking a look at the board so far, it looks like they're maybe a little bit optimistic over here on these prop sites. So they've got guys like Tommy Fleetwood Lowry at a -2 projection. Of course, as a reminder, this is a par 71 this week. So, guys at 69 are projected at -2, but you've got everyone on the board here at most at 70.5 strokes. So like your bottom tier players like this Kevin Velo guy, right? He's a newcomer to the PGA Tour, one of the bottom tier players, you'd say. And that's not really a diss, right? He's just new. We don't know a bunch about those sort of players. They're still at under par, right? They're at 0.5 under par on these projections. And if I think it's going to play to an even par scoring average, so 71 strokes, this is probably a little bit too optimistic, right? Because you shouldn't have the entire field, right, projected under that sort of average. And then guys like a Billy Horschel that are here at 70 strokes, right? That's 1 stroke better than the average. Now, they are slightly above average players. A lot of the guys they have here at 70 strokes, but are they a whole stroke better than the field on average? In a lot of cases, you wouldn't really say that. And, you go down there to the guys at 69 strokes, right? 69.5 strokes. You got to ask yourself, like, are they a 2-stroke gained per round sort of player? And in most cases, they aren't, right? So that's why I think that this board could be, a fade board, I would say, if I'm taking a look at these projections. But I also know that it's moving day. The course is going to get a little bit easier. It's just that I wish the projections were a little bit softer out there for some unders. And if you go over here to the birdie board, maybe this is a better spot to go out there and attack. You do have some guys posted on here at 3.5 birdies. They had Bridgman on there who was -150 for his over on Draftkings. It looks like they may have ripped that one off the board, but there were also a few other guys on there like Horschel that was at 3.5. I believe it was like minus 145 for the over. It does look like they adjusted out there for those DraftKings odds and took a few people off of there. But even DraftKings, like, I'm not 100% sure I agree with them on a lot of those projections, because if we go back to the stat averages, I thought it might be like 3.25 birdies are better per round. At 3.5, right, having to get to 4 to go over that sort of projection, that's gaining almost an entire birdie to the field, which, for elite tier players like a Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Xander Schauffele, sure, right? I think they're going to do that 65, maybe 70% of the time, right? There's a reason why they're one of the elite tier players that you have in this kind of field. But when it's like one of these middle tier guys, like even a Horschel, right? Above average player, but he's not a stud by any means out here in this kind of field. I wouldn't be projecting him for like minus 145, minus 150 for the over. So I kind of disagree with what you had there with the sports book. So that's why I didn't go out there and fire on those bets right away. They were over here on the board, but just like the strokes board, I just feel like it's a little bit too optimistic. And, over here on these books, that same kind of sentiment that we just talked about over there with the birdie board is also shared over here with strokes. Like their strokes lines over here on the books are juiced towards the under 69.5, right? For guys like Justin Thomas. You've even got guys like Tommy Fleetwood at minus 155 for the under. Like it feels like they think it's going to play super easy out there tomorrow. And I think it gets easier, no doubt, compared to rounds 1 and 2. But I don't know if it's going to be as easy as what they're calling for. And I guess just to give you guys a little bit more information on why I'd say that, let me actually bring up Data Golf real quick. I'm going to show you some of the stat averages from this course over the last few years. You'll see that it played over par all 4 rounds last year. So that data point number 1 right there. If you take a look at the year before that, this is when they grew out the rough. So you can see right there, all 4 rounds over par. Year before that, it also played over par in all 4 rounds. So it can play easier, right? Without all of that wind, but a no-win day, 0.5 over par, right? Going back to 2024, you had a no-win day out there for day 1, right? 0.06 over par. Days 3 and 4, right? About a quarter of a stroke over par in both cases. I have a hard time thinking that it's going to play a half a stroke to a stroke under par, like this pricing would indicate. Because if you're going to have guys like Riley, Velo over there at 70.5 strokes, you better be projecting for at least that sort of scoring average. So that's why I think this board could be a little bit of a fade board in general. We'll talk about the fairways here in a second, but over here in Underdog, it's almost the same pricing, but they do have a few changes that they've made. So, guys like Justin Thomas, by the way, were at 4.5 birdies over here on Prize Picks earlier. And they were at even money in a lot of cases. I believe they had Fleetwood on there. I know they had Zalatoris and Spieth posted for a few minutes. And those got ripped off the board, obviously, because if you take a look at the DraftKings odds, just to show you why they would get ripped off, like Zalatoris, I think he was like minus 180 out there for the under. Like, I agree with that. Like, I do think it's a long shot, right? For guys like Corey Connors and Zalatoris to get to 5+ birdies, but those got ripped off the board like immediately. So, gosh, I wish we had this to play with, because I would have entered that fade for sure. March Madness or Luke Livestream, easy call. Looks like you made the right call, Mark, to get in here. He said Tommy Fleetwood at plus 5,500 seems interesting. Yeah, so he's a good ways back. What, six shots off the lead at this point? Maybe worth a sprinkle, man. I don't want to talk you off of it, because that'd be a heck of a call if you got the job right. But it's got decent course history. Ball striking stats have been okay to this point of the week. Yeah, not a terrible play. And we got Joseph down there again. I saw you over there on the DFS live stream as well. Welcome on in, buddy. So let's find a little pairing here. So let's talk about this Davis Riley prop. So I'm for sure entering this one, because this prop is a misprice if I've ever seen one. Just like you have here with the 7.2 fairway average. Last year it was about 7 per round. If you take a look at all 4 rounds, it was a little bit softer today because of the rain that they got on the evening right over there on Thursday. But this is only going to get lower as the week goes on, right? They're not expecting any more rain. Golf course is just going to dry up as the next few days go on. So I think it could be around like a 7.1, maybe a 7 fairway average out there for the field. And what you got to realize with Davis Riley is this guy is inaccurate as hell, right? This is not one of your more accurate drivers in the world. In fact, I'll go over here to Data Golf real quick and show you guys what I'm talking about. Over here on the right, one thing I do like that Data Golf does, they're not my preferred database. That, of course, would be Bet the Number, the sponsor of these live streams. But one thing that Data Golf does kind of incorporate that I like with what they do with like props is look at this fairways category, right? Driving accuracy gained is the way that you read this over here. Sorry, I didn't want to sort it by that. Let's get it by the last few results. he's only gained in like one of his last like 15 events, right? It was over here at the Amex, which he missed the cut at, which by the way, they only had fairway stats for one of the 3 rounds before they cut at that event. So it could have just been one decent day that he had out there, right? Farmers, he was about an average player, but you can see on here, right? Even when he gains accuracy to the field, like beginning of last year, he had a few decent events when it came to that driving accuracy. He hardly gains to the field. So if the average is going to be like 7 per round, he clearly projects for at best like 7 per round, right? If not closer to like 6.5 fairways per round. So this is a golf course, by the way, with only 13 fairways in play. So with the low fairway percentage to begin with and one less opportunity, right? You'd see why I'd be on this sort of under. So that one was a no-brainer for me. The hard part's going to be here, guys, is finding a positive stance play, because if he wanted to go out here and just find a fade, let's just pick some random guy here and take him for an under, right? It'd be a 2.5x payout, which is just absolute trash, not even really worth playing. It's like taking a plus 150 prop over there on the sports book, and you still have to hit the 2 legs to go over here and hit on Prize Picks. So unless you're getting just like mega value on that sort of slip, it's usually something I stay away from. And look at that. I got ripped off the board because I guess the Prize Picks lines maker is just watching this live. And actually, the entire fairway board just got ripped off. So maybe the lines maker was watching this and then realized that there's only 13 fairways. I went out there and just mentioned that. If that's the case, I've got to admit that's pretty funny if that's what ended up happening there. But yeah, now we only have birdie lines and strokes lines to go through. And I think they're all far too positive plays. Like I think in general here, fades are the prudent thing to go out there and do. And like even these guys at 3.5, like a Jeremy Paul, for example, if we think the birdie average goes up to like 3.25 per round, I would say 3.5 would be like all the stars align, right? It's just like perfect conditions out there for tomorrow, right? Nothing goes wrong out there at all. Maybe it's like a 3.5 birdie average for the field, I'd say. Like that'd be like the best case scenario out there for tomorrow. These guys like Jeremy Paul, who are well below average players, right? I would still lean on out there for an under. So I know we had that fairway line ripped off live there, which is a little bit annoying, but I still think there's some fades that make sense. So I think Jeremy Paul would probably be my favorite of those guys that they have at 3.5. But like a Kevin Velo, you could say the same thing about. And then even their strokes lines, right? We were looking at these guys at 70.5 before. Shooting even par is not going to be a terrible round tomorrow. Like I know it's going to be a little bit easier than the first few days, but this golf course is far from a pushover. So like this feels like, and I hate to say it because the payouts are going to be trash on these sort of combinations, but it's the kind of slate where these fades are going to be the first kind of props that I'm trying to get to. And usually my favorite way to play these sort of props would be to either mix them in with another sport that you're playing. So when NFL is going on, that's usually my favorite thing to do, is to take one of my favorite NFL props or mix them in with some of the fades that I'm playing out for any given day. But we don't have that luxury this time of year. And the other thing I like to do would be to like find a birdie or better matchup to go out there and play, because those do take away the multiplier on 3 and 4 leg slips. But we don't even have those out here to work with. So it's almost like they're forcing us to go out here and just take a fade slip for a lower payout, which I've got to admit is sub-ideal. I mean, in a perfect world, right, we'd have some props we could take for some unders and some overs out there, but it's pretty consistently priced, right? They're all too low, in my opinion, out here with these strokes lines. Like the studs should all be at probably like 70 strokes, I would say. They're mostly there at like 69.5. And these above average players like a Harry Hall, Bo Hostler, right? They should probably be at 70.5 strokes because they average about a half a stroke gained per round to the field. Hence why I think they should be at that sort of number. And then these like Davis Rileys, the Velos, the Jeremy Pauls that we have in here, you know, I'd put them at 71, maybe even 71.5 strokes, right? Because they're below average players out there in a lot of fields that they play in. So it's a tricky board, I would say, especially if you're trying to root for some players to play well. It's not the kind of pricing that you'd be hoping for. But I did want to check on a few birdie lines because I don't know if they have anything up for Harry Hall, but he is a good birdie maker. So he's minus 150 for the over. So like if we were trying to find somebody to play to offset some of these payouts, like a Harry Hall would be one of the few players I'm sure on here that are a quote unquote plus EV value out there for his over on birdies. So let's see. Do we want the birdie under or the over on strokes more? Let's see. So Velo, does he have a strokes line? Let's get up to the right category here. and see if he has anything to compare to. Where are you at, Velo? Velocity, whatever his name is. Come on, any day now, DraftKings. We can get these odds updated here. Okay, so it looks like they took the board off, so maybe it's just them. I guess we'll default to MGM Caesars. Okay, they don't have a Velo prop posted. This is great. Come on. DraftKings, why do you decide to just take a shit in the middle of the stream? Okay, there it is. Do we have a Kevin Velo line? It doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like they have anything posted for the young kid that we don't know much about. Maybe he has a birdie line posted. Let's see if Jeremy Paul has anything too. I'm guessing not, right? Yeah, nothing posted for Jeremy Paul. Maybe they have birdie lines posted that we can use for some comparison. And what I'm trying to do here, right, is see what they have in terms of like their sportsbook lines, just to see if one of them was like more plus EV than the other. But just like the strokes lines, right, neither one actually has anything posted. Now, a good comparison might be like a Hisatsune, who you can see here is like minus 135 for the under. Let's see. Davis Riley's minus 125 over, actually. So Griot's minus 135 under. So I'd probably use guys like a Griot as a decent comparison. Other guys down here like Royo, at minus 135 under. Like I think that's a pretty decent comp too. But not having that strokes line to compare to is first off kind of surprising, but second off also kind of annoying. So what I'm going to do here to parse through this is let's look at the shots gained metrics, because depending on how Kevin Velo and Jeremy Paul are playing, one might make a little bit more sense for a fade. So we've got the shots gained metrics up here. Let's put Velo there. And then get good old Jeremy Paul, who, by the way, is Yannick Paul's brother. If you guys follow the DP World Tour, Yannick Paul plays over there. They are related to each other, as you could probably imagine if you've seen headshots of either player. So up here at the top, you've got Jeremy Paul, who you can see is gaining in the two ball striking categories, has kind of just been sick across the board. And then you have Kevin Velo down here, who's been a little bit more short game dependent. Now, still into the positive in the two ball striking categories. You can see over there, he's gained 4 strokes between around the green and putting. So I would say that Jeremy Paul probably has the better stat profile over the first few days. I do want to look at their form heading in. So you can see Velo did make the cut over there at Puerto Rico, but it was 5 missed cuts in a row ahead of that. And, that's why I call some of these guys like average to below average players, right? It's not a diss. It's just the truth out here with a lot of these different guys. And then Jeremy Paul, actually surprisingly good form, top 20 over there at Puerto Rico, top 25 at the Mexico. He was in contention after 3 rounds over there. Velo is probably the one that makes the most sense for a fade, I would say. So what I'm going to do for this, because it is moving day conditions, he's a young player, maybe dealing with some nerves, is we're going to take the Harry Hall over on birdies as the positive stance play to kind of like balance out the payout structure here. And then we're going to take an over on Kevin Velo strokes. So with Velo, or if I'm expecting around an even par scoring average, that's expecting him to have at around like I would say at best an even day, like about at best like an average day would be an over for us. And considering that he's heading in out of form, he's heading in without all that sort of made cuts, right? It was like 5 of 6 missed cuts. That's why I take that sort of lean in. Yeah, at this point, the lines maker is 100% actually watching this. So I guess we're not going to do anything over here on Prize Picks. The lines maker is an absolute scared bitch ass, has no backbone whatsoever when it comes to their projections. And I've met both of them personally. They're both seemingly decent people, but you can tell that they have no confidence in what they do based on, some of their actions that you see throughout these live streams and their reactions to other pieces of content. It's not even just me. Like I see my guy Prop Geek Zeke over there on Twitter. Like he tweets something out and like 2 minutes later, the entire board ends up getting bumped by like 0.5 strokes. You would think that these lines makers that spend their time going out there and setting these lines would have any ounce of confidence behind them to not instantly move them. So I guess that's on them. I still do like that fade over there in Velo. And maybe you guys have some other sports you can go out there and play, right? That was the main thing I mentioned with a fade board like this, is that you don't have to play like only golf slips, right? You could take this fade on Velo. You could take this fade on Paul if you wanted to play that as well, and just mix it in with your favorite March Madness prop. Mix it in with your favorite baseball prop, whatever you guys are playing this time of year, right? Out there in your exposure, and get some value that way. So that's what I'll say for that. Of course, on my Patreon page, that's where I'll be posting the actual slips that I end up getting to. But really just, I don't know, I hate to say the word scummy, but kind of scummy behavior from the lines makers on these sites. Just it's not even like my content gets like thousands of live viewers when I do this, right? It's like 20 to maybe 100 people at a time that are watching these live. I know the replay crew comes in large, but it's not that big a deal. I don't know why these people are that scummy. Let's go through the underdog board. Maybe they're not going to be as overreactive when it comes to some of these lines. But speaking of, maybe they have some of the same ones posted over there. So they do have the 70.5 over there on Velo. They're not going to have that Davis Riley fairway prop, right? We're not going to have that one to compare to. Let me see if they have Harry Hall up here. So Harry Hall, they have it 3.5 birdies. Now there's a little bit of a multiplier there, but what's the payout on that? So that's 2.88x if you took that together. So a little bit less than 3x. Let me see what else they have on here. So they have a bunch of the same guys posted that you have over there on the other site. I just want to see if they have any of these on here that are juiced towards the over. So there's the Bridgman one I was talking about. That one is 0.87x. So the same kind of thing you've got going on with this Harry Hall one. I kind of want to look at Sam Stevens. He's an aggressive player. He's not a terrible birdie maker. And then they do have Shane Lowry at 0.81x. It's a worse multiplier, but he is a better player than what you have with a lot of these. Let me look at Stevens, what his birdie line is, if they have one for Sam Stevens. So, like, look at that, right? He's like minus 140 for the over, which speaking of over here on the prize pick side, do they have Stevens up? They probably ripped him off too, right? With what they're doing with these sportsbook odds. Like I said, they have no backbone, no confidence in what they're doing. But over here on the underdog side, they do have a few more of these guys still posted. So, you know what, guys? It's like a joke at this point. It's like a meme at this point. You know, I was about to give Underdog their flowers and say that they're not watching the live streams and not adjusting for them live. But look at that. They added the 0.9x multiplier over there for Stevens as we're doing the live stream. Look at that. Now Kevin Velo's right going to get a bump over there too. I got to say, being on the Patreon, I guess, has its benefits, right? You don't have to deal with these lines makers being childish pricks, I guess would probably be the best word to do it. But they're literally moving lines on us live as we're on here. So it's just, I don't really know what to do at this point to give you guys any value. Maybe you guys caught a slip or two right as we've talked about them and then they've ripped them off the board. Maybe you guys are part of the reason why they're moving some of these lines. But, I mean, look, I can't even get the underdog board to load at this point now. Maybe they're locking me out of the account. Just, I don't know. If that doesn't tell you how much these lines makers are all over me, then I don't know what else to say, right? They're clearly scared of what I have to do. And I've got to say, I've been in a downswing lately on my golf props over like the last event and a half. So for them to be this overreactive right now is kind of wild. Like, it doesn't really make sense, considering that it hasn't been like a hot stretch for me or anything like that. It hasn't been like the kind of stretch of props where it's like, oh, wow, we should start really adjusting for what this kid has to say. Now, I've been doing this for 3 years. They know my track record. There's a reason why they have me down to the lowest limits possible out there on these given books. But wild the timing on this, that's for sure. Said Tom Kim looking dangerous. Agree with that one. He said drove it well today. His approach has been great. And he's starting to go a lot faster with his process. He's not sitting over the golf ball for like 20 seconds thinking about it. I like what he's doing there. Jeremy Paul, a.k.a. Hugo Simpson. His brother, by the way, Yannick Paul, shout out to the DP World Tour stud. He's a heck of a player himself. You were going to ask Harry Hall bounce back, but you see it's gone. Dude, this is the worst that it's ever been with them just ripping stuff off the board. But I don't know. It's not, I don't really know what to do about it. You said same is available on Underdog at 2.88. That's probably what I would do. So like I can't bring up the board for some reason. I'm not sure why it's not loading. Maybe I can like refresh it, get it to load over here or something. Okay, that worked. It would get it to load that way. But like you could even still use the same Stevens one, right? It's not like the worst play in human history. It's just that they took the Velo one off now, right? So you can't even go ahead and use that one. As they add these props back to the board, obviously go out there and enter what you can, guys. But yeah, some 3.5 birdies, I think they make sense for some overs. Like the Draftkings lines would indicate that maybe there's some value there, but it is moving day. Guys are going to be aggressive, right? Especially that are starting further back. And a few of those players that I look to, like Harry Hall was a top 5 birdie maker on tour last year. Sam Stevens was a top 25 birdie maker on tour last year. Like, that's why I look to those players in particular. So I guess we're going to have to keep the actual slips behind the paywall at this point, because I mean, if I say anything on here, it's either going to get ripped off the board and moved. I mean, it's happened with like the 5 of the 6 props that we've mentioned at this point. So the 2 that haven't moved, that, like I said, if you have other sports that you're playing, anything like that, and I've got to say, of all the props that we've talked about, these are the 2 that I think have the highest hit rate. These overs on these scrub players that are 0.5 under par, shooting even par tomorrow is not going to be a bad score out there for guys in this field, and they can shoot even par and hit for you over there with that kind of over. So yeah, if any of these should have like moved for the take that I'm giving, it should have been those 2. No idea what the hell's going on otherwise. Harry Hall looks like the evil foreman in a Charles Dickens movie. He does, man. He's got the crazy Bryson hat on, except that it's the crazier version, right, of that old timer hat. I love it. You're in the Patreon, so you'll get the content. Yeah, I know you are, Jamar, so you'll be good. I don't know what to do here in the live stream, right? Like, everything I mention, it's just like, poof, it's gone. And there have been a few props I mentioned on the live stream that I really wanted to enter. So it's kind of annoying that they're taking them off the board, but I don't know what I'm going to do about it, right? Any thoughts on Straka for the weekend? Yeah, so we can take a look at his shots gained. He's really setting up well, which makes me think he's going to be really popular out there for showdown purposes. But I like how he sets up. I mean, he's gaining over 4 strokes on approach, positive in all 4 categories. He will be probably 25, maybe even 30% owned over there in showdown. So I'm personally staying away in a lot of my exposure, but I have an outright bet on him. I obviously hope that he goes out there and gets into contention. He's setting up well to go out there and do so. That's for damn sure. What we're going to do now, though, is we're going to go through some of the like matchup bets, what you can do out there for round number 3, because luckily those lines makers, DraftKings, Fanduel, and all those sort of people, they're not going to react the same way. I can promise you, right? I'm not that big of a fish when it comes to the betting quite yet. Prop stuff, for sure. I'm one of the forerunners out there in golf betting in the world. In fact, I originated a lot of the correlation stuff that you saw get the multipliers added out here on all these sites. I'm a big reason why that happened. So if you hate that part about golf betting, I guess I'm sorry. I'm part of the reason that became a thing, especially with the content I was doing. A lot of people learned about that through me. So a lot of your favorite cappers that do this, maybe other Discords that you're in, a lot of them, some of them admit it. Like Propkick Zeke, I know he's given me my props at some point before, and he's one of the biggest cappers you have out there. But some of them got their shit from me and they just refuse to admit it out there in the future. So those ones, fuck you. But the ones that'll give me my shit, all the respect to that out there. Point being over here, though, these lines makers like DraftKings, Underdog, they're far too big of sites, right, to care about somebody like me quite yet. So they're not going to like move the odds on us. Yesterday, they moved that one Hovland line on us, but that was probably because other people were on them. But let's take a look at this. So what I'm looking for in these round 2 stats is we want to find somebody that's really striping the golf ball, that's going to be matched up with guys that are maybe getting lucky over there with the putter. So going through these stats, like a Keith Mitchell really got lucky with the putter today. I don't know if he's like the best fade candidate because he's got some pretty good course history here, but like a Kevin Yu right here, like he feels like somebody that we could almost try to exploit out there in a market because he's normally a ball striking first sort of player. And you can see over here, it was all short game today. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the 3-ball market and we're going to see who he's matched up against, because I honestly have no idea who he's actually going to be in a group with. So it'll be 2 balls actually. Let's just do the 2-way market. I forgot, right? It's not free sums out there for tomorrow. And let's go Kevin Yu is against Tom Kim. So Tom Kim obviously should be the favorite between those 2 players. What you'll see when you go back to the shots gained metrics over here is that Tom Kim has been doing it all with the ball striking, right? His short game is accounted for like 1.5 strokes over there in round number 2. He gained 4 strokes over there with the ball striking stats. So in this sort of matchup, I think the minus 155 juice would make a whole lot of sense. Now, you want to do your line shopping, right? You want to find the best line available that you possibly can. So let me see if they have anything posted over here with Kevin Yu and whether it's better than that minus 155 odds. So they have a matchup for him against Billy Horschel, it looks like. Let's see, do they have any of those matchups even posted? So yeah, they don't have the head-to-heads posted quite yet, I guess. I know Caesars does. So let's go through the 2 balls over there. Good old Kevin Yu. So is also minus 155 over there on that site. So no matter where you go, you're going to get them at that same sort of number. Minus 155, probably not the best sort of line to go out there and take, but maybe we can add something to make it a little parlay here, a little 2-3 legger or something like that. So going through the shots gained metrics again, let's try and find somebody else who's maybe getting a little bit lucky. So we found the Kevin Yu to go out there and attack. I guess like a Victor Hovland, he got super lucky today. At Hisetsune, he also got super lucky. Let's see who these guys are actually matched up against. So Hisetsune is against Betty Ann, minus 170 odds. That just doesn't feel like the best. Who's Hovland going against, right? Because the guy Hovland's going against is almost for sure going to be the underdog. The issue here is that Bridgman is only plus 105. And I mean, Bridgman should probably be like plus 130, plus 150. So that's not something I'm going to personally go out there and bet. Hisetsune, right? His opponent in Benny Ann, I don't really want to eat that 170 juice. Let's see who Velo's going against. See who his matchup is. So Velo's going against Shane Lowry. Yeah, we're not eating minus 290. There's no way in hell I'm eating that sort of juice. Who else can be going against? Poston, Kevin Yu, we already pointed out before. You could go... I'm trying to think like Hostler. Hostler could be a good one. McGreevy could be a decent one. Let's check out both of those, Hostler and McGreevy. So let's go Hostler's even money against Highsmith. Oh, I think that's actually my favorite that we've seen so far. And then who was the other one that we wanted to try and potentially fade? It was McGreevy. And then, yeah, I think it was just McGreevy. And let's add in Ventura too, actually. So let's go McGreevy and then Ventura. So McGreevy's going against Henrik Norlander. I guess I'll throw it in the shopping cart. We'll check out Norlander here in a second. And then the other one was Ventura. Good old, and who, by the way, I took advantage of Ventura today. We had him in a lot of lineups, but he's going against Rasmus Nygaard Peterson. So all four of these different matchups that we've brought up, I think are decent plays. Like you've got Nygaard Peterson, who really hit the ball well today, who you're going to get somebody who got lucky in both short game categories. This Norlander one, I'm not sure how Norlander hit it. So that's the one that I want to research before I give it out. Norlander, pretty solid off the tee, okay approach play. Yeah, we'll take that one out. That's just not the best play that we have here. But these three really make a whole lot of sense. You have, by the way, Hostler, right, gaining a whole bunch putting versus Highsmith, who's in great form, and the ball striking's been solid for over here for the first few days. All three of these matchups are ones where you're getting a ball striker against somebody who's getting lucky. And, you're kind of getting like a double-edged sword right there, right? You have somebody that's in form against somebody who's due for some negative regression. And in these sort of circumstances, like you're going to usually get that guy favored. Like these sports books aren't complete idiots, right? That's why they go out there and price them in this sort of fashion. But minus 155, even money, and minus 155, I don't know if they'll let you parlay these over here in DraftKings. I assume they will because you're giving the odds. You're getting like a 5-1 bet there out there on that sort of parlay. So I don't think that's necessarily like the worst idea. If I was going to pick like one of these to go out there and play, it'd be this Joe Highsmith one, because I think under no circumstances should Hostler be favored in this situation. So just to show you this, let's put in Hostler and let's put in Highsmith into the matchup tool over here and bet the number, which, by the way, is a really good way to go out here and compare these sort of players. Let's do live for this event. So you can see that Highsmith has been the slightly better player to this point, one shot better over the 2 rounds. But look at this. He's the better off the tee player. He's the way better approach play. Look at this. He's over 2 strokes better per round in that category. You can see over there, right? Hostler losing strokes over there off the tee. And look at this. Hostler gained 2.4 strokes per round around the green. He's gaining 0.6 strokes over there with the putter. So 3 strokes per round over there in the short game category. That just reeks inconsistency, right? That reeks coming back to your mean at some point. Both of them only hitting 6.5 fairways. Highsmith usually hits more than that, so he's going to have to get things going. But look at this, right? 11 greens per round as opposed to 8 per round over there with Hostler. That's a pretty stark difference over there. And sure, Hostler's kind of bailed himself out a little bit, right? He's only making 2.5 bogeys or worse per round. But if he only hits 8 greens the entire week, at that long rough that they have around this golf course is going to finally catch up to him at some point. So that's why I would really like a Highsmith in this situation, right? That ball striking just makes you a little bit more consistent than what you have with some of your peers. And that one was even money over there in DraftKings. Now, let's see what he is over here on Caesars. Maybe you can get like minus 110. So yeah, also minus 115. And we didn't see any odds over there on Fanduel when we checked it out before. But if you can get minus 110, even that minus 115 that you have on these two sites, that's one that I'm personally going to try and get to. So Hard Rock Bet's usually the last book to go out there and post. So, if FanDuel doesn't even have their stuff up yet, there's a little to no chance that you've gone that over there on Hard Rock Bet. But when the board gets posted, sometimes they have a little bit of softer odds compared to some of the other books too. Maybe he's like minus 105 or minus 110 odds over there on that site. I'll definitely be investing on that myself. So that's the idea over there in the matchup market, right? A few, 2 or 3 different examples that we just went through is trying to find double-sided advantages, right? Not just guys that are playing good against, any just Joe Schmo. You try and find somebody that's playing well against somebody that maybe was getting a little bit lucky early on in the event. Where we leave off. What do I think about Corey Connors and his chances? So what I'll say about Corey Connors is that he's doing everything you'd like stat-wise. I hate the guy. He's probably my least favorite player that we have out here on the PGA Tour, but I'm playing him in Showdown because of how well he sets up. So if that tells you anything about the stats here, I mean, they're just beautiful. He's gaining across all 4 stat categories. In the first round, he pretty much did the same thing. Only category he lost in would have been the putter. Not much bad to say, right? He's gained over 3 strokes ball striking, slightly into the negative over there with the putter. A damn good play, I guess. And I hate to say it because it's Corey Connors. And of course, they nerfed the overs on strokes on Underdog. Unrelated, George Foreman died. Ooh, it is bad news. But yeah, unrelated, I guess. Antonio, what's going on? Long time no see. He said thoughts on Willie Z versus Connors for a matchup. So you think that'd be good value on Will? So yeah, Connors, I've got to say though, the shots gained metrics are pretty solid to this point of the week. Same thing with Willie Z though, right? We got to give Willie Z his flowers out there in that sort of matchup. Will Zalatoris, if we bring this up over here, he's gained nearly 5 strokes over there in approach. So yeah, I'd say comparatively, he's got an even better stat profile than what we have with Corey Connors. But I don't know if Connors is a good guy to go out there and pick on. So I don't know if there's any books where we can get an alternate 18-hole matchup between Zalatoris and somebody else. Because, if it wasn't Corey Connors, I'd be almost 100% of the time going yeah, that's a good guy to go out there and exploit. He said Fanduel is all the odds for me. Yeah, let me refresh it. Maybe it's just on my end where they didn't have it up before. It could totally be possible. I know it's kind of weird down here in Florida, right? Because they're not actually active in Florida quite yet. So, yeah, I don't have the round score up. I don't have the birdie lines and the matchups. Let's see. Yeah, look, this is Corey Connors versus Sepp Straka over there on that sort of matchup. So I don't know what it is down here in Florida, man. It's kind of annoying when it comes to all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Did Prize Picks do anything? Look at that, right? They bumped Kevin Velo that we were talking about before. What they do in Underdog? Did they take Velo off? Did they bump him up by 0.5? My guess is that they bumped him. So they gave him a multiplier there for the over at 70.5. These websites are just something else. I can't even say anything about the prop board here without them changing things. But alrighty, guys, that is all I'm going to have for this live stream. I'll go over this last question before we get out of here. He said, Hovland to Fleetwood or Spieth and Straka? I would go with the second pairing, Spieth and Straka. I think Spieth really starting to play good golf at his price tag. I think he's a value over there in Showdown. And then Straka, an outright bet for me, really setting up well with the irons. So I'd go with that pairing. But yeah, I got to get out of here because if I keep saying anything over here on these sites, they literally just rip things off the board. So for all the different slips I'm playing there on Underdog Prize Picks, I'm going to keep them behind the paywall over there on my Patreon page. So check out the link in the description of the video to go out there and join that, guys. But outside of that, that's all I've got for tomorrow's slate. Just like we had over there for yesterday, do you guys want to show you guys this over there on the Showdown side? We've got all the projections posted, and those, of course, include the player pool tags that we had out there for round number 2, which, by the way, if you were a part of the Patreon page out there for Showdown today, you should have just absolutely nuked. I mean, these are the different tags that I have on there to try and find different plays. You got the round 2 ball striking poppers, short game regression players, course history or high upside players that I look for out there in my player pool. You get the Sunday showdown, right? We add the placement point tag on top of that, right? So trying to take guys that are starting towards the top end of the board. But if you were in my Patreon yesterday and you had the player pool, of the guys that shot -3 or better, I think all but 2 of them were out there in my player pool. So just an absolute nuclear day when it came to that. And that's what happens when you have a process to go out there and find plays, right? When you're not just picking them out of a hat, just hoping to go out there and find guys on the right day, right? There should be a rhyme and reason for getting to all of your players. So not only do I give you guys all of these projections, ownership over there for Showdown every single day, but my entire player pool out there in my 150 max, including the reasoning behind why every single player is in there. So, right, I'm not just the kind of tout that'll tell you what to go out there and play, right? I don't just say like, take Bucks money line, right? And then move on with my day, right? I give you the reasoning, I give you the modeling and projections around it, right? So what we do over here in these props and Underdog Prize Picks, right? I point out why I like the plays that I do, and then we try and attack that value. It's the same thing over there on the DFS side as well. So if you guys enjoy that sort of insight, that kind of why, not just the what, but the why behind the process, make sure to check out the Patreon for all of that as well. But that's all I've got over there for the round 3 live stream. Best of luck with all the exposure that you guys are getting to. And we'll see you guys for the round 4 live streams out there tomorrow night.